Hello everyone. How is everyone today?
Hi everyone.
Uh, we have about 176 participants, so I'll just give it about 30 more seconds, let more people join in. In the meanwhile, why don't you tell us where you're joining us from? We'd love to know where you're joining us from. Oh, I see India, Delaware, Florida, San Francisco, UK, Buffalo, Christina from Scotland. Hey, Tony. Okay, all right. So we have quite a few people from different parts. I see David from UK, Chad from Vancouver, Canada. Nice, full house. So we are at about 350 people now, so we're going to quickly get started. To give you some context, we are going to talk about listing quality today, and how that may or may not affect your bookings, your revenue, and so on. So before we do get started, just wanted to quickly give you a couple of hygiene checks here. We will be recording this session, so you should receive it in your inbox in a day or two, just in case you miss out on something or in case you need to go over something again. So do have a look at your inbox and you should receive it in a day or two. Also, we do have another Q&A button here, Q&A tab. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask those questions here. We will try to answer some of them live, but we also have our team members here. We would be answering your questions live in the chat as well. So with that being said, let me start with what we're gonna do today. So we will have two sections to this. I will quickly run you through some slide decks, slides, which will be brief, and most of the session will be focused on being a bit more hands-on, going inside the product and seeing some real listings being analyzed, real properties from Airbnb being analyzed. So with that being said, let me quickly start. All right, so here we are, and I will make it full screen so you can see this better. So I am here today joining you with my colleague Liene. I am Piusha and I manage the product marketing bit here at PriceLabs. What that means is I take all the wonderful work that our team, our technical and product team does and try to bring it to you, make you understand and make you help you make the most out of it inside PriceLabs. I also have Liene with me. Liene, if you want to quickly introduce yourself here.
Of course. So my name is Liene. I'm a senior product specialist here at PriceLabs, and you can consider me sort of a bridge between the technical team, the data science team, and the customer base that we have here. Maybe I have already spoken to some of our viewers either via email or chat, or maybe assisted on a support call. So I've been here with PriceLabs for quite some time. So the chances are pretty high on that. And if I haven't yet had the chance to do so, I hope that's going to be one of those things that will happen in the future. So if you remember me from a webinar, do let me know.
Great, thanks, Ian, for that. Okay, so starting with what we're going to do today. Our agenda today is, as I mentioned before, is divided into two. And in that, we're going to talk about some very interesting things. Number one is what or how Airbnb looks at listing quality, and what that means for you when you are trying to get more bookings or more revenue on Airbnb. We are also going to look at some interesting figures from a recent study that our data science team did, something that helps us put quantitative data into, or rather data into something that we've already known for a while, to say with confidence that yes, A is linked to B, and how we can use those signals to get more revenue. Finally, we'll also talk about some revenue blockers, what may be blocking you, and what's working, what's not working, look at some real listings and give a bit of a live walkthrough. Some of you had very graciously volunteered your listings while registering. So we have used or going to use some of those listings to actually look at, how a real life listing may be analyzed based on the good and bad. So that's that. With that being said, let's get started. So Airbnb wants quality, not just operational quality. What do I mean by that? It's very interesting. When we think about quality, the first thing that comes to mind is probably the guest experience, the property itself, right? How is the quality of the property that you are hosting? How does it look? What are the features inside the property? What are the amenities that you have? How the guest experience is? How smooth it is? That's what people typically think about when they think of Airbnb listing quality. But there are two major components that actually go inside quality, and it's not just the operational stuff, right? And I'll go into that in just a bit. But it's very important to actually think about, to shift your mindset a little bit, to think about quality in two different terms. So now, the Airbnb ranking formula. Now, none of us really know what exactly goes inside behind the scenes at Airbnb headquarters, how they actually rank your listings, how your listings actually show up. But last year, actually, in the US, Airbnb actually hosted quite a few vacation rental owners and property managers. And there was a discussion around this. And there were two signals which were identified as the indicators of whether your Airbnb listing will get booked or not. And these were the two quality parameters that I was talking about. Now, I was talking about the quality that we all think about, operational quality, that comes with the second one. If and when your listing does show up, does it have the potential for a guest to have such a wonderful experience, such an overall great experience that they will leave a good, very positive 5-star review? And this is one of the factors that Airbnb uses to gauge the quality of your listing. Now, why is that important? Is for two things. Of course, Airbnb as a business want more and more repeat business, right? They want more users to, more customers to actually come and stay, but also to have that positive experience so that they keep coming back. So that's the business side of things. But we also have another thing, which is sometimes missed, is the fact that Airbnb also wants to save on their customer support costs. So in case a property is not great, right, you may, the customers may end up raising tickets, and that also increases their costs. So they're very, very strict about having a probability score where they ensure that you will leave a good review, or a guest will leave a good review for a property. And how do they do that is very interesting. They think about things like, date, location, your minimum stay settings, right? For example, if I am booking for, or someone is booking for a weekend stay and your property is only catering to weekdays, obviously it's not going to show up. So it's not very random. It's very well calculated, and also includes some personalized things. Like, for example, the past booking history of that guest. They like a certain kind of property. They have booked a certain kind of property in the past and like to book that. So all of that is taken into account, which falls under the quality of probability of a user leaving a 5-star review. But having said that, we all know how difficult it is to get a 5-star review. Now, here in front of you is a quick chart which talks about how your star rating actually affects the revenue that you're going to earn. And you can see it's very steep. At 5 rating, what is 106 takes more than 10% drop at just 4.99, which is very steep, right? So there's a direct correlation between how good a review, what the average reviews of your property are, and how much money you can earn. This is a data that we did, a study that our team did last year. It's PriceLabs in-house study. This is an indicative data from the Greek market, but this is true across the globe, that reviews is very, very important in the revenue, but it's also very hard. And this is not just about the reviews. We also get some tags, for example, like, the guest tag that you get. All of that is also taken into consideration while, you know, uh, your listings are ranked on the Airbnb interface, on the Airbnb screen when a guest searches for something, for a property. So before I move ahead, let me quickly ask you something. This is a poll for you to answer. When your Airbnb listing underperforms, what's usually your first? Let's see, and I'm going to quickly launch this. Just a second. Here you go, if you could. So we have 4 options here. You adjust your prices, you check your or adjust your availability or minimum stays, photos, title, description on Airbnb, or you just don't panic at all. You wait and monitor. Okay, I'll give it a couple of more seconds. We have about 200 people already answering. Let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna end the poll here and show you the results quickly. Liene, can you see the poll results? If you could confirm.
I don't see the poll results just yet.
Okay, no problem. So I'll give you the figures. So the number one here, 45%, is adjust pricing, right? Which is followed by wait and monitor. Now, this is obviously the first instinct that most of us have, right? When your listing is not performing, your property is not performing, there must be something wrong with the pricing. It's either too high, or it's not standard, or it's not competitive enough. But what we have discovered, and which is the topic of our webinar today, is that instinct may or may not be right all the time. Of course, there are scenarios where your pricing is probably not optimized. But if you have dynamic pricing in place, most times there could be other factors that is affecting your performance, which is what we will look at about now. But before that, coming back to the Airbnb ranking formula, I spoke to you at length about the right side, the quality that we think of when we think about quality, the operational stuff, right? But there's another very important quality signal, which is what's the probability that this listing will actually get booked by this user, right? And that's also another signal that Airbnb uses. But what does that really mean for us here? Now, the probability of a listing getting booked has several separate parameters. But to give you an overview, this means that your listing looks great, attractive, and customized and personalized enough for someone to actually look at it, go through it, and then click that button to book it. And why would someone book or be interested in a listing? There are several reasons for that, but number one is you're looking for a property for so and so dates at a location. Now, the first thing that you notice probably is the title and the photos. That in that split second, you're probably already decided, or a guest has already decided if they want to actually even consider that listing. There's so many options on a particular page that the time frame that you have to actually capture attention is very, very low. So if your photos and your title and your description and so on, which is the first thing that a guest, prospective guest notices, is not great enough, why would Airbnb rank your listing, right, on that. So what they do is they take all of this into consideration. If your title is good enough, if that matches with what the guest is actually looking for, if your photos are great, if they look great, if they're relevant. And I'm not just talking about pretty photos, right? Talking about photos that actually showcases your property, tells the story of your property in a way that captures the guest's attention. So these are some of the things that we think of when we think about the other quality factor and whether a prospective guest will actually be interested. They go inside the listing and then click that button to book your property. So with that in mind, and we had spoken to quite a few operators in the space, as we have always done at PriceLabs, we started thinking, what is it that goes into uh, getting more revenues and bookings and rankings, if you will, of a listing. And we actually did a massive study with over 10,000 Airbnb listings. And this was done globally. And what we were trying to figure out was there any direct correlation between the quality of the listing that I just spoke about, the quality here being the listing content, so your title, photos, amenities, and the ranking that you get on Airbnb, and eventually the revenue that you get from that listing. And we did find, before I tell you the results, what we did was we looked at all the parameters that have an effect on revenue, right? Of course, location, amenities, ranking, the size of your property, what is your cancellation property, policy, and other things as well. And also the content part of it. These were some of the things that we looked at to see if we can find any correlation between having these things in a way that's attractive enough to potential guests, and how directly those affect the actual revenue you get. And even after having, let's say, you've controlled all your parameters, your location is fantastic, your amenities is top notch, you are completely superbly competitive in the sense that you have all the amenities, the size is perfect. The one difference, fundamentally, the major difference between your listing getting booked and not getting booked was listing content. And listing content, when I say listing content, what I mean is your title, your photos. And titles here would essentially mean, relevant titles to the location that you're catering to. Is it, near the beach, or is it pet friendly, or how many bedrooms are there, so on and so forth. Photos, not just, as I mentioned before, not just pretty photos, but photos that actually talk about your property. What kind of amenities do you have? Whether all of your amenities are properly represented. Your cover photo, the main photo that people see on the listing on the Airbnb search page, does that reflect the kind of property that you're actually trying to showcase? Amenities, and this is a major one, right? Because sometimes what happens is that you list an amenity, but it's not probably there for whatever reason, or maybe you do have that amenity, but you haven't really listed it in either in your description, in your amenities field, or even in your photos, right? And these kind of things actually reduces guest trust. It's one of those factors which affects your 5-star ratings as well. And finally, the review signals, right? This, we all know, it's always great to have those 5-star reviews on average. And as I had shown you in the graph before, how important those are. So these are some, of course, there are many, many more, but these are some of the top ones that we think about when we talk about listing content and the listing content quality. So what did we find in the study? Well, what we found was that about 88% of these listings, out of these 10,000 odd listings had issues that were hurting visibility, had content issues. So this could be unclear photos, titles, description that doesn't match, the things that I just spoke about, right? 88% of these listings had those. Some had, and 70%, by the way, had weak photos or unclear photos. Photos being one of the major factors in listing content, were 70%, were whopping 70% had poor photos, right? 54% had descriptions which were not working for them, whether it was incomplete or whether it was not relevant to the property, needed some work. And of course, the final one, the inconsistencies that I spoke about, that you may list some problem amenities, it's not there. Or maybe, you have a beach access, but you say beachfront. These things, although very minute, small differences, affect the listing quality score and how you're perceived by Airbnb. So before I jump ahead and I will pass it over to Liane to take forward, I just wanted to see if there are anything in the chat. If not, Liane, if I will quickly. No, we're good to go. All right, so I will move ahead and you give me the go where you want me to shift.
Okay.
To the next slide.
So now that we have all the aforementioned data, let's very quickly check in on what exactly is the revenue marketing content. A good way to look at it is how you can look at an iceberg. There's the very, very tippy top of it that you usually see. That's the first thing that you might notice. But actually, there's a lot more deeper nuances that can either help your listing immensely or hinder its future success, especially if maybe you are somebody who's new to the market, is just starting out. So some of those more prominent issues that you might see can be in regards to the title, whether or not it's catchy, informative. Do you kind of present your listing as for the correct guest base? If it's a beachside property, are you saying something along the lines of beachside views, beachside access on the listing title itself? Are you making your listing inviting for just the very first glimpse of somebody who's just currently scrolling through Airbnb? Then it's also the photos. I think we've all spent a bit too much time, sometimes just purely scrolling through the Airbnb, checking the listings. And I assume every single one of you has noticed that there are certain listings where you're like, I'm not necessarily interested in booking the place, but that picture looks very neat. That makes that you want to click it. That makes you want to check it out. That makes you want to see like, not planning on having a vacation currently, but I'll just save it, that listing, for later. And the first picture for your property is usually the one that either can help with getting those additional clicks or hinder them. Once we kind of gone past the initial look, we delve deeper into amenities, whether or not your property has features and services offered to guests based on your market segment. So maybe if you are more in the business traveler industry, do you offer typical amenities like irons, ironing boards, things like that? Or if you are more in the, let's say, hiking market, do you have maybe bicycles for rent, things like that? Something that can once more let the user know that they might want to dive deeper into your listing and make some checks. Then we come up to the description of the listing itself. How detailed are you? How persuasive are you regarding why your listing is the best option for each individual traveler or a family travel? Then it comes to consistency. Now, we've already checked the title, we've checked the photos, we've taken a look at the amenities and descriptions, and now are we consistent between all of those segments? Does the listing description kind of showcase what is in your photos? Do the photos showcase what you have listed in the amenities? Do the amenities mention anything in the description? And the last but certainly not least is the review signals. How many positive feedbacks and reviews from the guests do you have? Did the guests have amazing experiences in your property? And in general, based on how many people are making the reservations, how many people are actually leaving said reviews? Right? I think we can go next. All right. And there, as we all know, there is always room to grow. No industry is static, and that's for certainly is not the short-term rental industry. And 91% of properties have a little to a lot to improve. Once more, it could be just the title updates. It could just be a slightly different picture here and there, maybe adding a sought-out amenity as well. So based on all the deep dives that our team did with the 10,000 listings where we analyzed different markets, we did notice that 9% have good content and 38% more likely are to beat the market just based on that content alone. So we segmented the listings in kind of 4 sections. First ones are kind of the hidden gems that had strong performance despite the content itself. So maybe they have a unique kind of a market segment that they cater specifically on, or they have something that makes them stand out in a sea of listings. Then we have the stars, which was 6% of the properties that had great content, exceptionally strong performance, and if not always, then a lot of the times those were usually the first listings to go as well. Then we also had the quick wins section, only 3%, that had good content, but they did still have room to grow. Usually maybe just a small tweaks here and there. Could be the description, it could be the title, or it could be, updating a couple of pictures here and there and making it a little bit more personalized. And then we had priority focus group, which needed content improvements. So that one was the biggest segment of it all that could use a bit more touches here and there to boost them either in the hidden gems section or the stars of the Airbnb section. All right. And now we will launch a very quick poll. So I hope you will all share with me, how often do you review or update your listing content in general?
While we're doing this, Liene, I think we got a quick feedback from someone saying that you could speak maybe a little closer to the mic.
Yeah. Hopefully this will now be better.
So, Suzanne, hopefully you can hear us both better now. Okay.
If need be, I can always make myself louder. That's I usually have the opposite issue. All right. We do have already quite a few replies. So yeah, hopefully everybody can now see the poll. Now I can see the poll as well. Very happy about that. And we do have not necessarily a clear winner, but with a significant margin. We do have users that are periodically updating their listings, so maybe every month or every 2 months. The next runner-up is regularly, which is surprising, but all in the best way possible, where you might update your listing every couple of weeks. Then we do have the next bigger segment is occasionally, once or twice a year. Makes sense, especially if you are in a more seasonal market. And happy to see that there is just a very, very small margin that only updates the listing when performance drops or almost never updates at all. All right. As I mentioned, short-term rental market tends to be fluid, it tends to be ever-changing, and when it comes to the content of the listings, it tends to follow the same route as well. All right, so now to the main point of the webinar is how to identify the revenue blockers within your Airbnb listing, how to see what exactly needs to be updated, what exactly needs to be changed, maybe just a little bit tweaked to ensure that you go from a hidden gem to a star listing. And for some of us, the first question that or the first answer that might pop up would be just use ChatGPT. As much of people love to use it on day-to-day basis, unfortunately, or luckily so, it can't solve quality issues. It is a generic AI tool that just simply doesn't have enough context when it comes to your listing, when it comes to your area, when it comes to your overall performance. And it can't adequately analyze all these segments necessary to provide a thorough feedback for it. It can generate content, but it can't really diagnose why you should have this particular content, why you should have this particular maybe title, why you should update your pictures a specific way. It does not see Airbnb specific visibility or quality signs. So if you ask it to analyze your listing, that's pretty much the only thing it will ever do. It will check just how your listing looks, and it won't be able to see what exactly is happening else in the area. Which comes to the point 3, it can't really benchmark against what actually is working in the market. Might benchmark you against another specific listing, but it won't be able to tell you whether or not that specific listing is actually outperforming you, or is it performing worse than you. All right, and with that, I would like to officially introduce our listing optimizer, which is designated for fixing listings, ensuring quality, and making simple suggestions on how you can improve your property. So it's mainly geared towards getting more bookings or more visibility on your Airbnb. It finds and fixes the invisible revenue leaks that you might have in your portfolio, that you might have in your overall listing. So what it does, it analyzes and scores each aspect of your listing, a title, description, pictures, reviews. It audits the listings as well. So it finds and prioritizes the specific weak areas in your listing. So let's say your title is fantastic, but the second picture of your third bathroom could use a little bit of sharpening up. Then it benchmarks your listing as well. You do get AI recommendations on how to fix said issues. Once more, sharper images. Hey, you might wanna, we can see that you have, let's say, a washing machine in one of your pictures, but you do not have it as one of your amenities. You might wanna think about rechecking that. And it's a fix. It tracks the progress with Airbnb rank tracking as well. So you can see actually whether or not these suggestions, these fixes have had an impact on your listing.
Perfect. So do you want to show us live then, dear?
Of course, it will be my pleasure. So let me just quickly share. Let me go with this one. All right. So I will, hopefully everyone can see my screen. I will just very briefly give you an overview on how the listing optimizer looks and where exactly can you find it on your PriceLabs account. And if you don't yet have a PriceLabs account, it takes only maybe a minute or two to set it up. So, all right. So once you are on the PriceLabs, the only thing you'll need to do is go to the listing optimizer section. As you can see, it also identifies it by the new tag here as well. And on the listing optimizer, you will see an overall view of all of the properties that you have analyzed. So what is the overall listing quality? So based on all of the scores that we have attributed to your portfolio, how well does your listing tracks against the market? Or how well your listing tracks against the pinnacle of the listing setup. Then you'll be able to see the overall completeness, meaning whether or not there's any missing actions that you could do for a specific listing within your portfolio, as well as how many active listings do you currently have. Just in case you are in a more seasonal market where you might take some listings on the market and then take some listings off when it is the off season. Underneath it, you'll be able to see some of the listings graciously provided by some of our participants here today. And you'll be able to see a very quick overview on what is the listing, what are the insights that our system has provided for this particular property, what is the overall score for this particular listing, if it already has a ranking on Airbnb, the host name, which in most situations, you just see your own name. When was the last time the listing was analyzed, and what could be the best tags for this property as well. And afterwards, you will be able to see a quick breakdown on the scores as well, based on a lot of different categories. We'll be delving into a bit deeper into this in a couple of seconds. Underneath it, you'll see the weekly ranking trends. So if you just want to follow up, hey, am I doing better than I did last week? Did all of my changes make any difference? Am I getting more looks on Airbnb? You'll be able to see it all on a very quick view. Also follow up whether or not a specific listing is doing better than another listing. Just to make your life a little bit easier, we also have segmented lower scoring listings. So kind of, hey, these ones should be the ones from your portfolio that you might want to address a little bit faster than the rest. And then you will also have the overall actions overview where you'll see, hey, these are kind of the bigger points that we have noted where you really have the opportunity to level up your listing to ensure that it is the best possible listing in the market for your customer range. All right. And I think that is pretty much regarding the overall overview on what you can view on the dashboard itself. And now we will be going a little bit deeper into a specific listing. So let me just stop sharing now.
Okay, thank you, Liene. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Can see your screen perfectly.
Perfect. So as Liene just showed us the overview page, this is how Listing Optimizer looks like. Now, before I quickly jump into one listing and show you, how analysis looks like, just a quick refresher. If you want to add your listings, how do you do that? You add your list, click here, add your listings, and here you can add your Airbnb URL, host ID, host URL, and so on. Just like the one you shared in the registration today, or a few days before. Similarly, you can add your listings here. It will analyze and it will show up with something like this. Now, with that being said, if I want to see what I need to improve, particularly in one of my listings, right? How do I go about that? Now, as you can see here, as Liene was just telling us, these are some of the overall scores that these properties have. And these overall scores are made up of a bunch of factors that we will get into just in a couple of seconds. But if you have to decide on which property you want to, if you, let's say, most of us have 1 or 2 listings, but some of us can have 5 listings or even more. How do you decide which one to focus on first? So we do have obviously all the recommendations here as Liane was showing us, but also right here, right, you can rank it via score. So I'll do something similar here. And let me quickly see this one. And I click on View Insights. And what you will see here is a very detailed analysis of all the factors that contribute to your listing content quality. Now, you might um, you might have a question regarding what are the key things that I need to look at while optimizing my listing content, right? You know your title is important, you know your images are important, but what are the other things? And more importantly, inside each of these, what do you need to change, right? That's also equally important. So let's start with what we have here. Now, the generic overview of the listing is that it has a 7.1 score. We have some insights here. Something that clearly pops out here is that we have one image that's low resolution, something that we may need to fix. There are some inconsistencies here between listed amenities and actual offerings or photos. And we will go below and see how those look like. But just to give you an overview, and of course, we can also see from the reviews, there seems to be some issues with the maintenance and so on. Now, once we have this overview, this general idea, we then get into the detailed stuff about each of these factors. So now, let's say I am intrigued by point 3, that my image is not that good. All right, so let me quickly look at the image section. We have the image here, and this is divided into a bunch of things. And I'll quickly go over these things. First and foremost, a lot of importance is given to the cover image. Why? Because as I think I mentioned before, this is the first photo that any potential guest would look at when they're looking at your Airbnb listing. So this has its own analysis, then followed by all the other pictures. So this here seems like a great photo. It says it's vibrant, welcoming, so on and so forth. It's colorful, modern style, good, positive first impression, right? So that's good to go. Great. Let's look at the other photos. What does it say? It says that these images are very well selected, great snapshot, highlighting the main living space and bathroom, primary bedroom, all of that, which is a great major selling point. So this is also well done. So what's the problem? The problem is this photo. If you click on this, you actually will be able to see which photo it is talking about. So this, according to the listing optimizer, seems like a low resolution product. Now, most of us have been there, right? We get professional photos done, but sometimes, there's one section of the property that we may have missed out on, and we just take our own iPhones and other phones and just click one and just post it there, right? While that can be a good fix, but at the same time, it may not serve the purpose of what you're trying to do. For example, you want to showcase this space, the amenities here, but maybe the picture is here, it's not, but maybe some pictures, it is so hazy that it's not even visible properly, right? So in that case, low resolution photos are sometimes doing you more harm than good. In this case, it's not so bad, but at the same time, it does flag it just for you to have a look and maybe change it as and when you can. Now, it also gives you an idea about why this photo section actually got a C score, right? I missed out on telling you that this got a C score, and why is this a C? So if we can look here, it tells you some good and bad stuff. Let's say the images are generally bright, highlight the cheerful, cohesive decor, but the overall score is capped at a C due to the presence of at least one low resolution image. Now, everything that we do at Listing Optimizer comes directly from two things. Number one, what Airbnb recommends, and number two, what the top performing listings are doing all over the world. Now, over here, Airbnb guidelines do tell us that, low resolution images are not great, which is why, our ratings are also adjusted accordingly. So this may look like a minor thing to you, but at the end, this is a major red flag for Airbnb, and which is why we have this also flagged and contributing negatively to the score. But it doesn't give you an overview, right? It also gives you two main things. What's working well, something that you don't need to change at all. So let's see, you have an inclusion of EV charging station, which is a significant bonus for travelers with EVs, right? We all know that. And since and this is not something that's said about all the listings. What I'm trying to say is markets or locations, of course, some amenities are universally important and attractive, but then there are some, which is more relevant to a particular property or a particular location, if you will. So if those are added here, like for example, Liene was telling us about if you're skiing in a skiing location, right? The skiing equipment, if you have that as amenities, that makes more sense and will be added as a what's working well section for that location. Maybe not from a location where it's not that relevant, right? Maybe not a beach facing location. So that is also these recommendations and these plus points and minus points are also dependent on your location and what your competitors. Moving on to what needs to change. Now, here you have three key bullet points. Again, of course, low resolution to high resolution. You also have re-photograph the barbecue area. Consider removing or replacing the unflattering photo of the laundry closet. I think it's talking about this. So yeah, there you have it. So for the images, these are your clear cut. So you look at it, you see, okay, what's working well, what's not working well. I have 1, 2, 3, these are the things that I need to do now. You don't have to do it immediately. But back of your head, you have, now that these are the 3 things that's not working with my images. So that's images. And if we go up to the title bit, right here, you have a better score here with B, but I'll show you something very interesting. So your current title here says this, but Listing Optimizer tells you that it should rather be this. Now, why is that? Now, there are, again, a bunch of things that comes into the picture. Number one is, like the photos, the titles and descriptions are also dependent on your location and what your competitors, and when I say competitors here, your top earning competitors in your area are doing differently, doing better, that's getting them more booking. So here, it seems like in this location, a pool would be a thing that's very attractive to people. So it recommends that you add the pool bit inside the title itself. Near downtown is something which seems like attractive in this area, which is more probable to get booked versus 8 minutes to downtown. So there are a lot of things that goes behind inside the algorithm, if you will, in the system that takes these decisions and comes up with what's gonna work the best for you, what's gonna attract more guests to your bookings. And we also have, like the image section, all the sections have this. It tells you why it gives you that score, what's working well, and what needs to change. For example, here it says replace informal terms like crib or abbreviation like EV. Then you have some capital issues in all the words. So things, again, as I mentioned, some things are directly recommended or not recommended by Airbnb, which is taking into consideration. And then, of course, there are things which the top performers are doing that you may want to do more. And of course, there's general good hygiene stuff. For example, it talks about evocative words to enhance the appeal of the listed features. Now, another thing that I wanted to highlight here is this part. We give you this recommendation, you can take it or not, but if you do want to do it, we want to make your life very, very simple. You can just quickly click on this button, this gets copied, and you can directly paste it and update your listing. And this is kind of similar for your listing description as well. Now, what listing description does a little differently, and we will talk about the analysis in just a bit, but listing description does two things for you. Number one, it gives details to your guests, of course, about your listing, and you want it to be perfectly written, but it also is an opportunity for us to include some SEO keywords here. What I mean by that is Airbnb, when it's looking at different properties for a particular search, when someone says, I want a 2-bedroom apartment in near the airport in, I don't know, San Francisco. So they take this into account and then they look for some keywords which would help Airbnb find those listings that are more probable to getting booked, right? As we spoke earlier about. So this is an excellent opportunity for you to put those keywords inside such that Airbnb knows that they can find and look at those keywords and they can find the relevant listings for any guest to look at and book. So let's see over here. So it gives you what you have currently, which is marked at B. So it's actually almost perfect. It's not, of course, perfect, but you have some room there. But it does give you a recommended description as well. So let's say if we look at this, it says welcome to, so your current one, it says welcome to Austin areas, cozy 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom apartment. Now let's see what listing optimizer recommends, right? Escape to Casa Marigold, a cheerful 3-bedroom, 3-bath Austin retreat. So it just takes what was written and just packages it in a much shorter format while still, having the same kind of emotion, same kind of logic, and it's not taking away your own writing or uh, taking away the personality of the property, just kind of trying to make it a bit more more concise and more to the point, and also while keeping the whole emotion of the place intact. So that's and again, you can copy anything here. You can copy the whole thing and you can paste. And like all the other sections, you also have the why bit. So your descriptions are comprehensive, but you could benefit from a bit more engaging and less list-like structure. What's working well, this listing description excels in its transparency and completeness. So good job, really well done. But what needs to change? There's always room for improvement. You're at B, you can always be at A. So highlight premium amenities like hot tub, arcade games, board games. Weave key features and location benefits into a more narrative that I was talking about, engaging description, and proofread the entire description too. If there are any, if there could be a minor typos or grammar errors that we sometimes don't even notice. So this also is a great place to have a look at that. Maybe there's just some typos or grammar errors. So that's the description. We also have some other things here. So for example, the amenities. So you're getting an A score here. You have your basic amenities covered. We also have star rating score. These are just your amenities, and star ratings are just there for you to have a look at where you are. This does not affect the overall score of it. Of course, star rating does, but amenities, for example, if it's complete, then it's, of course, you can't be penalized for not having, let's say, a pool when your property is not even, built for that amenity, right? So that is, all of that is taken into consideration, and but doesn't negatively impact your listing score if it's not something that's not possible at all for you, property figure. So that's that. And I also want to quickly bring your attention. These are something similar. So review summary. We take all your guest reviews and try to give you a very brief description of, again, what's working, what probably is needs some work from our end. So let's see, for example, it's mentioned that there are some structure and maintenance issues, for example. Some lightings are not fully functional. Probably you might want to have a look at that. While in the what's working well, everyone or most of them praise the property's location, proximity to attraction, restaurants and stores. So it's an excellent location you're in, and guests rave about it all the time, which is also another, you can also think of it in a way such that, oh, how can I use it in my descriptions and in my titles and my photos, right? Since guests find it so useful and they love it, maybe something to look at from that angle as well. Coming back to this again, the consistency score is something I think we have spoken about before. Whether your listing is complete or not, whether you have been consistent with what you have listed, to what's there in your photos, to what's there in your description, and of course to that what's there in real life, right? So this is an excellent opportunity for you to create guest trust. Simply because if you say there is a hot tub, if you do include a photo of a hot tub, it makes so much more sense, and it's much easier for guests to kind of trust it, right? Similarly, and also there are other things. For example, if you have an EV charging station, now I may be wrong, but there could be different types of EV charging that fits with different kinds of cars. And if you have a photo of it, someone can actually think, look at the photo and say, "Oh, it's compatible with my car," right? So, and these kind of signals also creates a consistency, a consistent experience. At the same time, gives you that guest trust, and then helps you get those more bookings. So that's how you look at this page. We also have two additional tabs. I'll go to the top performer insights first, which tells you how you're doing versus your competitors. So when I say competitors here again, these are the top four, or top three rather, top earning listings in your area, in your location. And if you see here, and you can compare yourself, that actually you're doing pretty similar, or in fact better than most of your competitors, but you have some areas where you can improve. For example, the listing title, this listing has a little better than this one, which is your own. Um, you have some scope for improving. Let's say, actually, yeah, this one, consistency score is something that you may want to improve versus this listing. It also gives you in text what you may want, what's working well, and what others are doing better in your area. For example, your image score is worse than this listing. To improve, what you need to do, you need to replace one of the photos, right? So you also get this idea about what people, or rather what top performing listings are doing differently, and how you can actually catch up or go beyond. Right after, beside that, we also have the ranking overview tab, which shows you how you're ranking on Airbnb on a week-to-week basis. This gives you two filters. You can look at, your guest count, and whether you want to look at weekend, week, or a month basis, and then look at how you have been ranking over a period of time, typically 2 months, just to see how you have been doing on Airbnb. Now, some of these may be that the property was not available itself. Maybe it was under maintenance. So in that case, of course, this doesn't make a difference. But we do have charts and graphs where it is much more important for you to track, especially during high seasons where you want to, or low seasons also, in fact, where you want to track day by day, week by week, where you're ranking on Airbnb search, such that you can make those improvements and actually track this. So, for example, if you make those changes and then you come back after a week to see your scores have improved or not, and how those score changes actually affect your ranking on Airbnb. So, this is about how you want to analyze a listing, an individual listing. I'm just gonna stop here because I think we are at time. So what we will do is we'll just stop here with the presentation. We may take a couple of questions, but feel free to kind of jump off and go about. Thank you so much for joining. We can just take maybe two live questions, Liene, if that works with you, and
Yeah.
then we will, yeah. And in case you have more questions, of course, you can reach out to support. At Price Labs, you're always there to guide you and help you. So let's see what questions do we
I
have. Maybe
I
take.
did notice quite a few questions regarding the pricing for the tool. I think we had it in the deck itself. So I think if we can bring it up, that should already answer, I think, like 5 or 10 questions that I just noticed in the Q&A.
That is perfect. So let's quickly talk about the main important thing. So before I go to the pricing, this product, just wanted to tell everyone, is an independent product. So irrespective of whether you're using dynamic pricing with PriceLabs or using any other product with PriceLabs, you can always use Listing Optimizer separately. I do see some questions. Is it included in in our dynamic pricing or any other product? No, it's not. Unfortunately, it's a standalone independent product with its own pricing, with its own own per listing pricing, as you can see on my screen. Before I go into the details, is there a free trial for Listing Optimizer? Unfortunately, not. You can try out the product. We have 1 month monthly subscription, but of course you can cancel it after a month. But unfortunately, we don't really have a free trials. Is it okay? I think that's all the pricing questions. But yeah, so you can see we follow a volume-based pricing. Like if you're familiar with dynamic pricing, this is something similar. If you have one listing, it's $12.99 US dollars per unit, and the cost keeps coming down as you add more listings. I've added 5, but you can go up to 500. But yeah, every time you add more and more listings to this, the per unit cost comes down. So if you're at 5, you pay $11.39 per unit, and your total cost comes to $56.95. But of course, if you're just doing one listing, analyzing one listing, that's a flat $12.99 overall and per unit as well. So that's about pricing. I also see a question about whether it's available on other OTAs. Not at this time, but it's in the pipeline. Currently, it's only available on Airbnb. But Vrbo and Booking.com, I don't know in which order, but it's all already in the pipeline, and we should have something out soon for those OTAs as well.
I do see a quick question also regarding the timings for it. So the very first time you launch the listing optimizer, it will take a couple of minutes to kind of analyze your listing. You can either wait on the page, or we do send out also an email, kind of a notification. Hey, your listing has been optimized. You can view it. Doesn't take more than 10 to 15 minutes. As in addition, if you are doing the reruns for the listing, kind of the same thing. It will need to take maybe 10 to 15 minutes to once more reanalyze your listing, and then you would get a notification and you'll be able to see the updated information. So if you don't see it immediately, no need to panic. Works as intended. It just needs a little bit more time to provide accurate information for you.
I also saw one question about whether we can choose the competitors in the top performer tab. At this point, no. So right as we speak, our product team is actually working on it, and I'm very happy to say within this month or the next month, but sometime very soon, we will have that feature where you can actually choose your top 3, 4, 5 competitors that you think are competitors. The reason why we had top performers is simply because you want to be always compared to the people who are earning so much, the most in your area. So we had that. But at the same time, we also realized that you would also want to have your own competitors there. So we are, of course, we have this in the pipeline, and that should come out pretty soon too. Anything else that you see, Liene?
I am looking for so far. I think the team has been great with answering the questions as well, whilst we had the webinar. And there are some relatively more unique questions that once more do reach out to our support team so we can answer them. But I think we covered the majority of overlapping ones, at least as far as I can see.
Yeah, yeah, great. All right. Thank you, Lian, and thank you, everyone, for being here on the webinar. I think we are 5 minutes over, so I will stop here today. But thank you so much for being such a wonderful audience, being so interactive, asking so many questions. I know our team loved answering those questions and clearing those doubts for you. We always love interacting with you and learning from you and getting your doubts cleared. And we hope that you will try Listing Optimizer, give it a try and give us some feedback how you like it. And I hope you learn something, irrespective of whether you try the product or not, how to think about quality. But yeah, that's from me. Lian, do you want to add something or we're good to go?
I think it's just going to be the general thank you all for attending this session. Yeah, hope you learned something new, or if you've tested it out, then you learn a bit more insights on how the product itself works. As always, it is a true pleasure seeing so many people from across the globe joining this. And yeah, speaking just purely, a little bit selfishly from the support side, I hope that you do reach out to our team, that you do have a ton of questions, and if the chances or if the stars align, that I'll see at least some of you in my support calls as well. Till then, have a great rest of the day.
Okay, with that, thank you, everyone. See you. Bye bye.